Okay, so free will apparently doesn't exist, and whether you believe it or not, it doesn't really change the fact that there are things to kind of strive for in life. And I'm not normally an optimistic person who just spews out every possible positive affirmation they can think of, but from my experience, there has been things that, despite the whole eventual fate of causality, are going to end up being worth it in the long run. So basically, the theory that free will doesn't exist comes from the fact that the law of causality exists, and every action has a reaction. Every thing is due to something that caused it. Every effect. So the sound that you're hearing now is an effect of me speaking. That's one cause and effect cycle, but there's many others as well. And so if somebody makes a decision, it's because the synapse in their brain has fired off, saying, "Let's do this," from the sensory end to the motor end, and that's basically the cause of everything. But something then caused that synapse to fire off in the first place, and it's likely going to be something we didn't have control over. And if we did have control over it, and it was something because of us, then there was something else that caused that. And if you go back, eventually it's going to be external, and eventually it's going to be something that we had no control over in the first place. So at the end of the day, we're all just functions of the external experience around us, and therefore we don't have any actual say in what we do. We don't have any actual free will. Um, so yeah, that's basically the theory. That's the underlying message behind it. But over the last couple of years, I've kind of delved deep into my mind, and I've realized that there's kind of more to gain than just the cause and effect cycle that is so physical and so external. Because the meaning of life, obviously to live, that's one part of it, but then there's also, on a deeper level, internal self-discovery. That's basically the meaning of life. It's what Jung would have said, and it's what I would generally advocate for as well. That's kind of the true meaning behind it. So it's hard to describe, but self-discovery is essentially worth it. Like, if you go down this path, and I'm not going to talk about self-discovery in this, but it's a reason why free will shouldn't really matter too much, because so what if you don't have any say over things? All that matters is really the truth of how things are, and if you're willing to accept that, and if you're willing to come to terms with it, then you're actually going to be able to do something, because you were essentially taking responsibility for your condition and your life. And without that, you'd obviously have nothing. Without truth, you don't have anything. So seeking the truth is the main goal in life, in my opinion, and that usually involves looking at the world and seeing what you're projecting out into it, and seeing, well, where does this exist within myself? Now, this is never usually through conscious effort. It's kind of through continual truth seeking, and then you kind of connect the dots. So you draw the patterns. You don't just find one thing and then you think, okay, so this is part in me, and then you've suddenly discovered it. No, that's not how it works. It's like assuming that Newton thought, okay, let's come up with the whatever laws he came up with off the bat. Like, it was more like something that he was constantly divesting his energy into, and putting all of his cognitive effort into this particular endeavor that he was so absorbed in. He was continually seeking out the truth in some way, and then it just so happened, by sheer potential happenstance, maybe not entirely, that he figured out one of these theorems, and then he could prove them then. And that's basically how everything is discovered. You're along the path, and then you kind of find something that looks interesting, and then you turn it over, and then you realize, oh, okay, so this is where something that I learned through theory earlier on in life adds up. And that's basically how self-discovery works as well. You find something, or you might read about something, and you think, probably not me. But if I technically apply this to my mind, then I can see that here, maybe this potential thing could be of consequence, and this thing could be causing it. But you don't really understand why unless it's from personal experience, which is why, in my opinion, looking at a projection, isn't really going to matter unless you experience the projection, because if you try to run away from whatever projected feeling you were experiencing, you're not going to truly understand it. But if you do, it's like projection is because of something you have repressed, but only when you dive headlong into that repressed emotion that you're newly experiencing as a result of this thing as the object of a projection, only until you only when you actually allow yourself to feel that properly are you going to truly integrate it properly. So that leads to a fulfilling experience, and it's that type of experience that leads me to believe that it doesn't matter whether free will exists or not. Technically, it doesn't matter whether we can rationalize ourselves into thinking that the world has this eventual fate, this eventual destiny. We're all gonna end up in some way in the end, and we have no control over it. But it doesn't matter, because if you're willing to actually delve into yourself, but 99% of people aren't willing to do this, which is the problem. And you probably aren't either, to be honest. You might not even have a soul, to be quite frank. But I know that I do, and I know that this is something that is going to constitute a justification for all of the doom and gloom brought about by our rationalistic viewpoint of laws and our arguments for these metaphysical laws that govern us. It doesn't always have to be in a bad way. Like, there's nothing you can do about death, but we experience it anyway. So why should we be bothered by it? So yeah, that's basically the main message. Thanks for watching.